Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to speak to you about something that shapes every decision you make, every action you take, and ultimately the quality of life you experience. It's something called the master system. This isn't just a concept, it's the framework that silently guides your life, a collection of your beliefs, values, emotional patterns, and mental focus. When you understand and take control of your master system, you unlock what Tony calls ultimate influence, the ability to direct your own destiny. Beliefs are the invisible architects of our lives. They are the stories we tell ourselves about what is true, what is possible, what we are capable of, and what the world is like. Often formed early in life, beliefs become the silent directors of our thoughts, emotions, and actions. Without ever realizing it, we live out the script that our beliefs have written for us. The power of beliefs lies not just in what they represent, but in how they shape our perception, influence our decisions, and ultimately determine the course of our destiny. From the moment we begin to make sense of the world, we start forming beliefs. Some are empowering. I am loved. I can achieve anything I set my mind to. There is always a way. Others are limiting. I'm not good enough. Success is only for lucky people. People can't be trusted. These beliefs become filters that color every experience. Two people can face the same challenge, yet respond entirely differently simply because of the beliefs they hold. One sees opportunity, the other sees defeat. One pushes forward, the other gives up. That difference isn't in talent or resources, it's in belief. Beliefs have the extraordinary ability to create or destroy. Empowering beliefs can lift us to great heights, helping us persist in the face of adversity, take courageous action, and stretch beyond our comfort zones. They become the foundation for confidence, resilience, creativity, and hope. On the other hand, limiting beliefs can silently sabotage progress. They whisper doubts in moments of opportunity. They fuel fear when change is needed. They convince us to settle when greatness calls. What makes them so powerful is not that they are true, but that we treat them as if they are. What we believe becomes what we expect, and what we expect tends to manifest. This is not mystical thinking, it's psychological reality. When you believe something deeply, your mind begins to look for evidence to support it. If you believe you're not smart enough to succeed, your mind will focus on every mistake, every stumble, every moment of hesitation. Over time, you gather enough evidence to feel justified in the belief. But this process works in reverse as well. If you choose to believe you're resourceful, that you can learn anything, that every setback is a setup for a comeback, you begin to find evidence for those beliefs too. This is the self-fulfilling nature of belief. It creates the emotional and behavioral framework for its own reinforcement. One of the most important realizations we can come to is that beliefs are not facts. They are not fixed or permanent. They are choices, often unconscious, but choices nonetheless. And like any choice, they can be changed. Many people hold on to limiting beliefs simply because they have never questioned them. They inherited them from parents, absorbed them from culture, or formed them in moments of pain. But just because a belief feels familiar does not make it right. It's essential to pause and ask, is this belief serving me? If it's not, it's time to let it go and replace it with something more empowering. Changing a belief begins with awareness. When you notice yourself hesitating, doubting, or fearing, ask yourself what belief is driving that feeling. Is it the belief that you'll fail, that you'll be judged, that you don't deserve more? Bringing that belief into the light is the first step. Once identified, you can challenge it. Ask, is this really true? Where did I learn this? What would I do if I didn't believe this? In many cases, you'll find that the belief doesn't stand up to scrutiny. It's simply been running unchecked in the background, influencing your choices without your consent. Replacing limiting beliefs with empowering ones takes intention and repetition. Just as a groove in a record becomes deeper the more it's played, a belief becomes stronger the more it's reinforced. To shift your beliefs, you must consciously create new mental grooves. Affirmations, visualization, journaling, and surrounding yourself with evidence of what's possible all help in rewiring the mind. But the most powerful reinforcement of belief is action. When you act in alignment with a new belief, even before it feels fully real, you begin to make it real. Each step forward reinforces the idea that change is possible, that you are capable, that your past does not define your future. Beliefs also influence how we interpret the world. Consider someone who believes people are inherently good. When a stranger smiles at them, they see kindness. When someone is short-tempered, they assume that person might be having a bad day. Now compare that to someone who believes people are selfish and dangerous. The same smile becomes suspicious, and the same short temper becomes confirmation that others can't be trusted. The difference lies not in the world, but in the lens through which it is viewed. This is the power of belief. It becomes the lens that determines the meaning of our experiences. Beliefs also drive our standards, what we believe we deserve, what we believe we are capable of achieving, and what we believe is possible all influence the quality of life we are willing to accept. Raise your beliefs and you raise your standards. You start expecting more from yourself and from life. You stop tolerating things that drain your energy or keep you small. You begin to pursue goals that once felt out of reach. All transformation begins when you raise the belief of what is possible. In relationships, beliefs play a critical role. If you believe love is conditional or that people will always leave, you may unconsciously sabotage intimacy. If you believe you're worthy of deep, supportive connections, you'll approach relationships with openness and trust. In work, if you believe success requires struggle and sacrifice, you may reject opportunities that seem too easy. If you believe success can be joyful and abundant, you'll welcome those same opportunities with enthusiasm. In every area of life, beliefs set the boundaries of what we allow ourselves to experience. Ultimately, the greatest power of belief is that it gives us access to transformation. No matter where you come from, no matter what you've been through, you can change your life by changing what you believe about yourself. Belief is the first step to progress, the root of resilience, and the gateway to possibility. When you believe in your power, your worth, your vision, everything begins to shift. Challenges become stepping stones. Doubt becomes fuel. The impossible becomes inevitable. You are not limited by your past. You are not limited by your circumstances. You are only limited by your beliefs. And since beliefs can change, so can you. So take control of the beliefs you choose to hold. Question the ones that hold you back. Strengthen the ones that lift you up. Because in the end, your beliefs are the foundation upon which your life is built. And when you build that foundation with intention, courage, and vision, there is no limit to how high you can rise. Values are the emotional states and principles we hold most important in our lives. They drive every decision we make, from the most trivial to the most significant, and whether we recognize it or not, they form a personal compass that constantly influences our behaviors, goals, and relationships. This internal compass, often referred to as the hierarchy of values, determines the order of importance we assign to certain emotional experiences. When we understand this hierarchy, we gain clarity on why we do, what fulfills us, and why we sometimes feel conflicted or unmotivated despite our efforts. Our values are not random. They are shaped by our experiences, upbringing, culture, and personal reflections. They evolve over time, and their order of priority can change depending on the phase of life we're in or the lessons we've learned. Imagine a person who values freedom above all else. That person will make decisions that support independence and self-direction, perhaps avoiding long-term commitments that they feel might threaten their autonomy. On the other hand, someone whose top value is security may make entirely different decisions, seeking stability in career choices, relationships, and daily routine. Neither value is inherently right or wrong, but their placement in our hierarchy determines how we act and what we are willing to sacrifice or pursue. If freedom is number one and security is lower, we may take risks. If security is number one and freedom is lower, we may avoid them. The hierarchy of values can also explain internal conflict. When two important values clash, it creates emotional tension and indecision. Take, for example, a person who highly values both family and career success. If career success is ranked higher in their hierarchy, they may consistently prioritize work over time with family, potentially leading to strained relationships. If family is higher, they might turn down promotions or opportunities that require long hours or travel. The key here is not just recognizing which values are important, but the order in which they are placed, because the highest value in our hierarchy will almost always win when two values come into conflict. Sometimes people are unaware of their value hierarchy and feel stuck or frustrated without understanding why. They may set goals that align with values they think they should have based on societal standards or external expectations, but not the ones they genuinely feel are most important. This misalignment creates resistance. A person might set a goal to become wealthy because they think it will bring happiness, but if their highest value is connection or creativity, they may find the pursuit of money empty or draining. On the surface, it may seem like laziness or lack of discipline, but in truth, it's a mismatch between goals and values. Understanding your own hierarchy of values provides a powerful lens for making decisions with integrity and purpose. When your goals align with your top values, you naturally feel more motivated, energized, and fulfilled. The actions you take feel meaningful, not forced. You experience a sense of flow rather than friction. This is why personal development experts emphasize the importance of values clarification. Knowing what you truly value helps you choose a path that reflects your inner truth rather than one that chases someone else's idea of success. Shaping your value hierarchy consciously also empowers you to create change in your life. You can elevate values that you want to experience more of, such as growth, contribution, or health, and lower those that are no longer serving you, such as the need for approval or control. This shift doesn't happen overnight, but with awareness and consistent focus, it's entirely possible. It begins by asking meaningful questions. What emotions do I most want to experience in life? What moments bring me the greatest fulfillment? What am I willing to sacrifice for and why? These questions help illuminate the emotional outcomes you prioritize, and from there you can begin to reorder your hierarchy intentionally. In addition to values you move towards, such as love, success, or adventure, there are also values you seek to avoid, such as rejection, failure, or loneliness. These are known as away from values, and they also play a powerful role in shaping behavior. Often, people will avoid situations that could lead to pain, even if it means missing out on opportunity. For example, someone who fears embarrassment might avoid public speaking, even if it would advance their career. These avoidance values can often operate unconsciously, subtly steering you away from growth. Bringing them to light is critical if you want to break through fear-based limitations and pursue a more expansive life. The ideal is not to eliminate avoidance values, but to ensure that your hierarchy empowers you rather than restricts you. You want your toward values to lead and your away from values to serve a protective, not dominant role. When fear-driven values sit at the top of your hierarchy, they can paralyze progress. But when purpose-driven values lead the way, they inspire bold action, clarity, and resilience. There is also a social dimension to values. When we understand the value hierarchy of those around us, family, friends, colleagues, we gain insight into their behavior and motivation. Conflicts often arise when values clash, especially in relationships. A couple might argue constantly without realizing that one person values spontaneity and the other values predictability. Without understanding this, they may misinterpret each other's actions as disrespectful or thoughtless, when in fact, they are simply operating from different value systems. Developing the ability to appreciate and navigate differing value hierarchies can significantly improve communication, empathy, and connection. Ultimately, the hierarchy of values is the internal engine behind everything we do. It determines how we spend our time, how we respond to challenges, what we pursue, and what we avoid. When aligned with our deepest truths, our value hierarchy becomes a source of immense power and clarity. When misaligned or unconscious, it can lead us into cycles of frustration, burnout, or confusion. To live a life of fulfillment and purpose, it is essential to define, understand, and consciously shape your hierarchy of values. It starts by identifying your current values, evaluating their order, and asking whether they support the vision you have for your life. It continues with the courage to realign when necessary to place love above fear, growth above comfort, purpose above approval. As your values evolve, so will your identity, your actions, and your impact. The more clearly you understand what you truly value and in what order, the more confidently and consciously you can chart your path forward. The emotions you habitually experience shape the quality, direction, and meaning of your life. More than circumstances, more than outcomes, and even more than the people around you. The emotional states you consistently live in determine how you interpret the world and respond to it. Every day you experience a range of emotions, some empowering, others disempowering. While occasional emotions come and go based on specific triggers, there are also emotions you return to over and over again. These habitual emotions form the emotional home you live in. Whether that emotional home is filled with gratitude, joy, curiosity, or conversely, frustration, anxiety, or sadness, it becomes your default emotional lens through which you view everything. This emotional conditioning is often unconscious. Over time, people train themselves to feel certain emotions in response to familiar events, interactions, or thoughts. A person who habitually experiences stress may react to even small setbacks with tension and overwhelm. Another who has conditioned themselves into appreciation will find beauty in the same moment. The external event may be the same, but the internal experience is completely different. This is the power of habitual emotions. They become the filter through which life is experienced, ultimately shaping your identity, your relationships, your confidence, and your ability to grow. The repetition of emotional states isn't random. It's driven by meaning, interpretation, and reinforcement. If you often feel angry, it's likely because you've linked anger to some sort of control or certainty. If you frequently feel helpless, that emotion might be rooted in a belief that nothing you do can change your reality. Once a person gets used to an emotional state, they begin to seek it even unconsciously. It becomes familiar, even if it's painful. Familiarity for the human mind often equals safety. And because we are creatures of habit, we return to emotional states not just out of circumstance, but out of emotional conditioning. Think of someone who regularly feels resentment. That emotion, repeated day after day, begins to shape the person's mood, outlook, health, and communication. Over time, resentment becomes a reflex. The person doesn't even need a significant trigger. Their brain finds reasons to stay in that emotional state. Conversely, someone who habitually experiences gratitude will find reasons to feel thankful even in the face of challenges. They've trained their nervous system and their mind to default to an empowering state, creating resilience and deeper joy. Changing your life, therefore, requires a shift in the emotions you experience regularly. It's not just about achieving goals or fixing external situations, it's about cultivating emotional mastery. If you want a life filled with peace, confidence, love, and excitement, you must first condition those emotions to become your default. This doesn't mean you'll never experience anger or sadness again, but it means those states won't dominate your inner world. You can feel an emotion, learn from it, and let it pass rather than live in it indefinitely. The process begins with awareness. Take a moment to reflect on which emotions dominate your life. What emotional patterns do you fall into most frequently? Are they empowering or limiting? Do they lift you up or hold you down? Do they move you toward the life you want or keep you trapped in cycles of fear, regret, or stress? Identifying your emotional home is the first step toward changing it. From there, you can begin to interrupt the negative patterns and reinforce positive ones. One of the most effective ways to change habitual emotions is to change your focus. Whatever you focus on, you feel. If you focus on what's missing, you feel lack. If you focus on what you're afraid of, you feel anxiety. But if you shift your focus to what you're grateful for or excited about, your emotional state changes instantly. Your brain is like a magnifying glass. It will enlarge whatever you place in front of it. Directing your focus intentionally allows you to take command of your emotional experience rather than letting it be dictated by old patterns or random circumstances. Another powerful tool is the use of physiology. Emotions are not just mental, they're physical. How you move, breathe, and hold your body directly impacts how you feel. Someone who feels depressed has a very different posture and breathing pattern than someone who feels empowered. By changing your physiology, standing tall, breathing deeply, moving with energy, you can begin to shift your emotional state. Repeated over time, this rewires the nervous system to respond differently. You train your body and mind to live in a different emotional state. Language also plays a key role. The words you use, especially when talking to yourself, reinforce your emotional patterns. If you constantly describe your life as overwhelming, your nervous system will respond accordingly. But if you start using words like challenging, expanding, or transforming, your brain assigns a different meaning to the same event. Your habitual vocabulary becomes your habitual emotions. Mastering your language allows you to shift not only how you express your emotions, but how you experience them internally. In truth, emotions are nothing more than signals. They tell you whether your needs are being met, whether your values are being honored, and whether your current path aligns with your deeper self. But they are not final truths. You don't have to be ruled by them. You can acknowledge them, understand them, and choose a different response. This is emotional fitness, the ability to feel fully but not be controlled by feelings. Just like physical fitness, it is built through repetition and intention. Over time, as you shift your habitual emotions, your entire life begins to change. Your relationships improve because you no longer react with old patterns of fear or anger. Your health improves because your body is no longer flooded with stress hormones. Your productivity rises because you're no longer held back by self-doubt or discouragement. Most importantly, your sense of self evolves. You begin to see yourself as someone who lives in peace, who embraces challenges with courage, and who creates joy regardless of circumstances. it is important to remember that no emotional shift happens overnight. It's a process of consistent conditioning. But every moment is a new opportunity to train your mind and body. Every challenge is a chance to choose a new response. With time, those new responses become natural. You develop an emotional home that empowers you rather than limits you. Ultimately, the emotions you habitually experience are the foundation of your personal reality. They color every thought, interaction, and decision. If you want to change your life, start by changing the emotions you live in most of the time. With focus, practice, and patience, you can condition yourself to live in empowering emotions. Gratitude, confidence, joy, love, and create a life that reflects the best of who you are. The emotional home you build is the emotional life you live. Choose it wisely, train it daily, and let it serve the highest vision you hold for yourself. The focus you consistently maintain determines the direction and quality of your life. It acts as the lens through which you experience the world and interpret every situation, event, and interaction. Focus is not a fleeting thought or an occasional burst of concentration. It is the habitual pattern of attention that your mind gravitates toward. What you consistently focus on becomes your reality, not because it is the only thing that exists, but because it is the part of existence you choose to magnify. In every moment, countless stimuli vie for your attention. Your focus acts like a spotlight, illuminating certain aspects while leaving others in the shadows. And what you shine that spotlight on will define how you feel, how you act, and what you ultimately achieve. When people struggle in life, it is often not due to a lack of resources, intelligence, or opportunity, but because they are focused on what they lack instead of what they have, on what they fear instead of what they desire. The mind is incredibly powerful, and wherever it is directed, energy flows. If your focus is on problems, those problems appear bigger. If your focus is on growth, your capacity to overcome challenges expands. This is not just a motivational idea. It is a psychological principle backed by the way the brain filters information. The reticular activating system in your brain helps determine what you pay attention to, filtering the massive amounts of sensory input down to what seems most important. When you condition your focus, you influence what your brain deems as relevant and important, creating a self-reinforcing loop. For example, if you constantly focus on how things can go wrong, your brain will scan your environment and experiences for evidence to support that view. You will notice the risks, the dangers, and the setbacks. You may miss the opportunities, the resources, or the moments of joy. On the other hand, if you train yourself to focus on what's possible, your brain will begin to find examples of success, reasons for hope, and solutions you may have overlooked before. This shift does not necessarily change the outside world immediately, but it dramatically alters your experience of it. And that inner shift is what leads to external change. The most successful people in the world are not those who have never faced adversity, but those who have trained themselves to focus on possibility, growth, and purpose in the face of difficulty. They do not allow their attention to dwell on what they cannot control. Instead, they focus on what they can influence. They ask empowering questions that redirect their attention from limitation to action. Questions like, what can I learn from this? Or what's great about this challenge? Force the mind to find meaning and progress even in adversity. Over time, this pattern of focus becomes a habit, a mindset, a way of being. It is important to recognize that your focus also shapes your emotional state. Where focus goes, emotion flows. If you focus on something that angers you, your body responds with tension, your mind narrows, and your emotional state shifts accordingly. If you focus on something you're grateful for, your physiology relaxes, your mind opens up, and you feel more resourceful. This is why focusing on the right things is not just a mental exercise that affects your body, your health, and your energy. The emotions you feel most often are driven by the focus you maintain most consistently. Moreover, your focus determines your behavior. Your actions are a reflection of what you give your attention to. If you constantly focus on your goals and the steps needed to achieve them, you're more likely to take meaningful, consistent action. If you focus on distractions, doubts, or criticism, your actions become scattered or hesitant. This is why clarity of focus is essential for creating lasting change. It acts as your internal compass, guiding your decisions and helping you align your actions with your values. Focus is also critical in relationships. When you focus on your partner's faults, they grow larger in your perception. When you focus on their strengths, you feel more appreciation and connection. The same principle applies to how you view your coworkers, your friends, your family, or even yourself. Your relationships are deeply affected by what you choose to focus on because focus drives emotional connection or disconnection. By shifting your attention, you can transform how you feel about someone and how they feel about you. Training your focus is a skill that requires intentionality. It begins with awareness, recognizing where your focus naturally goes and whether that serves you or disempowers you. Once you identify your default patterns of attention, you can begin to interrupt unhelpful ones and replace them with empowering alternatives. This might involve writing down what you want to focus on each morning, practicing gratitude, meditating to bring your attention back to the present, or using affirmations to reinforce your desired mindset. The more you practice directing your focus, the easier it becomes to stay aligned with what matters most to you. It's also vital to guard your focus from external distractions. In a world filled with notifications, advertisements, and constant stimulation, your attention is constantly under siege. If you don't actively protect it, you'll find yourself reacting to everything rather than creating with intention. Setting boundaries, turning off distractions, and creating an environment that supports deep focus are practical ways to take back control. When you consistently maintain focus on your vision, values, and goals, you create momentum that is difficult to stop. In times of challenge or stress, it becomes even more important to manage your focus. The mind will naturally drift toward worry, fear, or confusion. These emotional states can spiral unless you consciously redirect your attention. By focusing on what you're learning, who you're becoming, or what you contribute, you shift from survival to growth. This doesn't mean denying difficult emotions, but rather choosing not to dwell on them longer than necessary. Focus becomes a tool for transformation, not a trap of limitation. Ultimately, the life you experience is shaped less by what happens and more by what you focus on. Two people can face the same situation and come away with entirely different outcomes simply because their focus was different. One may see failure, the other feedback. One may see rejection, the other redirection. One may focus on the pain, the other on the lesson. This difference in focus becomes a difference in mindset, and that mindset becomes the blueprint for action and results. So the question you must ask yourself is, what am I consistently focusing on? Does my focus lift me up or hold me back? Am I directing my attention in a way that builds my future, or am I unconsciously reinforcing the past? The good news is that focus is a choice. It is something you can change in an instant. With practice, you can train your mind to consistently focus on the empowering, the meaningful, and the possible. When you do, your energy shifts, your actions align, and your life transforms. The focus you consistently maintain isn't just about attention, it's about creation. It's about shaping your inner world to align with the life you want to live. Choose your focus wisely, and it will shape your destiny. In closing, your master system, your beliefs, values, emotions, and focus is the blueprint of your behavior and results. When you gain awareness of it and intentionally reshape it, you unlock the power of ultimate influence over yourself, your choices, and ultimately your life. If you want lasting transformation, don't just change your behavior, change the system that drives it. And when you do, you won't just influence your life, you'll redefine what's possible. Thank you.